Alright class, so you're out here in my backyard. Sounds like someone just started barely maybe using some kind of saw right when we started, so I apologize for that, and you hear the birds tweeting. Nonetheless, I want to show you that I have my mold here all ready to go. I finished chipping it out last time, and then what I did was I rinsed it out with water and got it washed up pretty nicely. Just carefully took this out and then added water to it, and then used my finger to get rid of the clay. I could use a bristle brush or something as well if need be. So next thing up to do is to actually level it out. So I said to you guys how you could level it if you had like something akin to this, like a bubble level of some sort at home. That would work well. And what you would do is you'd put it on there, and then you would see if the bubble's going high one way, then you need to raise it up the other side to make it in the middle of those black lines. So mine's pretty close. It's a little off, so I'll take a minute and do that. And you would want to do it multiple directions and get down on the tile as much as you can, so that'll help you. Looks like mine's a tiny bit off, but it's looking pretty good. But what I would do to fix it is, and I'd take a little ball of clay such as this and actually put it underneath the mold, so get a tiny little ball of clay. Now you can also, like I said, use water and pour it in there carefully, and it'll act as a level. If you see when I pour the water, and I can see if it's going all to one side or direction, and that'll mean that the plaster would flow out that way as well. And in mine, it's all going down here. Can't see it super well, but that's what's happening. So if it's going to that far corner, that means that corner is too low still. So I need to take and raise it up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is dump the water out. Sounds like I got a full-on chainsaw situation going on over there. Sorry about that. I'm going to do that, and then I'll just check it with my level and see. It looks a little high now. Let's try the water again. Now that's looking pretty good with the water. It's a little high over here, a little high there, but that's partially because, like I said before, my mold got a little messed up in the process. It got a little warped, so that's part of what's happening with that. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and dump it out. And I got that leveled with that piece of clay right there, so I'm good to go. So the next step would be to actually mix up some plaster. And I got a jar here, a bucket with some water in it. I'm going to be ending up making about double the amount of plaster as what's on there usually. So I have a little under 8 ounces, so that'll be enough because my tile is very thin. If you needed to really tell exactly, you could pour water in there and see how much it was. Like when I poured the water in there, I could have then poured it back into a bucket of some sort, added a tiny bit of water, and then made that much plaster to be really exact, but that's not usually necessary. You can just get rid of the extra bit of plaster. So I got my water in there. Now I've got my dry plaster I gave you guys in a bag. It's here to the side. And I'm going to do the method that I showed you guys many a time before, which is sprinkle it, okay? Carefully before I get started here though, I noticed something that I want to take care of, which is I have a bunch of water still in this rubber mold. So I'm going to shake it out because I don't want the water to mess up my casting. Also, I'm going to make sure I push my rubber mold back into the mother mold really carefully so that it's accurate. And make sure it's all fit into there really nicely. Okay, so I want to make sure that's happening. And when I did that, I just noticed I got a little bit of a wobble going on this thing, so I'm glad I did that. So that's kind of like how that is. Do you see how I shook that out? And I made sure this is very carefully positioned in here so it's actually locking into the right part of the mother mold. If it's not locking into the right part, then it won't be the accurate casting. The rubber won't be accurate, and it'll hold it wrong. So I'm all set up now. I'm going to start sprinkling that in like I do. I got to work fairly quickly because as I said before, you have a limited amount of time, and don't have to rush it too badly, but you got to get enough in there quick enough that you're gonna make sure you don't get your plaster drying up in your bucket. I had mine measured out pretty accurately because I had a general idea of how much was going to go in there, but it looks like I'm a tiny bit short, so I'm just going to take a little bit more and keep sprinkling it. So that looks like it's going to do me pretty good there. I'm at the right level of a mound. There's a mound happening and it's not getting eaten up too quickly. So I'm just going to take and mix it up with my mixer. This is a piece of an old hanger or something, I think, plastic bit. Any kind of thing will work, and you'll see that in half a second here. I'm going to use my hands too, so that's perfectly fine. I got mine going pretty quick. It's kicking off pretty quickly, so that means I probably added a tiny bit too much plaster into it. Looks like I got a couple pieces I don't like the feeling of. A little piece in there I'm going to pull out, put to the side. But besides that, I'm pretty good. This is a little bit thick. It's fine if it's a little thick, you can still do it. It'll work, but it's better if you can pour it because it'll actually level on the back a lot nicer. I think what happened here is I had so small of amount of water when I was dropping the plaster into it. I wasn't carefully noticing if it was mounding properly, and I just added a little too much. This may actually work to my benefit, honestly, for this tile, because I had that problem I told you guys about with the tile buckling because of the cardboard it was on, and it was pulling the moisture too quickly between when I got the layers on and then was finally able to get it off there. So, you know, we all make mistakes and have issues along the way, even me who's made a lot of molds. As you've been able to funnily see in this videos, that I've had problems along the way. So don't worry if you're having problems. It's par for the course. It's kind of art making has little things you never thought might happen. Each time you make something, that's kind of like part of the process. Even if you've done the exact process before, there's bound to be things that come up because you're doing, even if it's the same process, there might be slight variations. And all those type of variations mean things can go different than you thought. Just like me with this mold that I've done this exact process with a lot of people and a lot of times myself, but yet something happened I wasn't expecting with the buckling. So I'm just working with it. So I'm kind of smoothing that carefully with, this is a ceramic rib made for throwing on the wheel and smoothing clay. You could use a piece of little cardstock or a piece of cardboard and help yourself do that, but like I said, if it's thinner, it'll actually level out on its own just by giving it a little shake. Either way, what you want to do is give it a little bit of a tap once you get it in there and it's still wet. I'm kind of vibrating that on the table because I want it to get all the bubbles out of the off the surface and get it to fall down into the mold as best as I can. So that little bit of tapping can help that out. Mostly when you're tapping, be careful you don't get it falling off, really falling off level and dropping. So you just got to be a little ginger with it. This kind of process takes a little bit of a soft hand. You don't want to go crazy with it, but you don't want to be afraid to pull on things a little bit. So that's it. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'll be able to demold it. Same way that I did with the other one, the clay tile, except for this time it should come out a lot easier because it's not locked into place. And I'll be able to pull it out carefully. When I pull it out carefully afterwards, I'm going to want to work down in there and just carefully vibrate it and pull it out as I go. And if it gets really, really locked in, it means I might have had an undercut. But last time with the clay, it wasn't locked in too badly. What it was there was a real dry piece that wasn't letting it come out. on the edge, and also what I realized is I wasn't giving enough pressure in the middle. It popped out pretty easily right after the video was over, so it should be fine. So you guys post questions if you have them, but that gives you the idea of the leveling and the casting process, which takes us through the mold. To have 2 castings, you just have to wait for that to dry, probably like at least 5 hours until it's not really moist at all. I recommend, even if you can, overnight, but at least a few hours, 2 hours. If it's really warm outside, that'll help, or moist, but you want to have it really good dry mold casting before you pull it out so it doesn't break. And then after you get one out, do that again for a second one, and you can keep doing as many as you want. Press clay, cast wax, all kinds of things in there. So alright guys, hopefully you're doing good. Stay safe out there, and hopefully you don't have chainsaws next door to you like I do. Sorry about that.